What's up, Archons? I'm Flightless Pheasant, and now that you're here, we can get the lecture started and see what it is you know or don't know about the most precious resource on the Crucible. But before we do, I'm a huge fan of Keyforge, and if you are too, then please like, subscribe, and hit the bell, as I'll be bringing you even more lore from Keyforge and the Crucible. The time has finally come for another installment of my Lore Bites series. This is a series where I try to tackle the lore of the Keyforge universe one topic at a time in an attempt to make it more digestible for those who may not have a strong knowledge base of the lore of Keyforge. Today specifically, we'll be talking about that most precious stone, Aember. Aember is an incredibly valuable resource found only on the Crucible. But what is it exactly? Well, that's a little difficult to pin down, but if we were to speak in general terms, it's a resource, usually a mineral, though sometimes a liquid or gas or dust, that has incredibly powerful properties that make it valuable for the denizens of the Crucible. One of the features that makes Aember so valuable is that it can be found anywhere on the Crucible. Since the Crucible is a patchwork world, there are lots of resources that can be difficult to find if you're in a different environment than where they are natively found. But Aember is found everywhere on the Crucible, sometimes in large enough quantities that even the plants and animals will integrate it into their bodies, which can be a useful source of regenerating Aember for more regular harvesting. But Aember also sort of behaves like a living organism. By this I mean that sometimes when you find a vein of Aember and you start to dig it out, it'll run out faster than you had expected it to. And sometimes when you go to an area that you had already determined had no Aember, there will suddenly be Aember there, even though there wasn't before. This sort of self-animate ability makes it very difficult to harvest Aember on an industrial scale, and means that most people who are looking for it have to constantly find new sources in order to keep up their supply. But what is the most useful property of Aember? Well, Aember is a substance that is psychically active. What this means is that it can change its shape, form, color, and even application based on what it is you need it to do. This is incredibly useful, as it means that Aember can do pretty much anything. But only once. Raw Aember has no psychic resonance, and therefore can be shaped to any purpose. But once it has been given a purpose, it's called processed Aember. Processed Aember already has a purpose built in, by someone who's already used a psychic resonance on it. Generally, this process is fairly lengthy and takes a bit of dedication, but once you do, that piece of Aember will now be useful for whatever purpose it was that you imprinted on it psychically for the rest of its existence. I know this sounds kind of complicated, but the short version is that you can take raw Aember, give it a purpose, and then it'll be useful for that. Let me give you some examples. Most cultures on the Crucible use Aember for power, because they believe that they can draw power out of the rock, which they can, so long as they believe that. Some other common purposes are for Ambread, a sort of hardtack that's useful for travelers, for Ambits, which are a currency accepted by all cultures because it has the psychic imprint of money, and for Helex tablets, which are a type of medicine that can heal even grievous wounds. I sort of brushed on this already, but the applications for Aember are really only limited by what you believe it can do. This could be intensely frustrating if you're a very analytical person or group, because it means that the application for Aember is determined by what you believe it can do. And if you don't believe anything without proof, then you'll never get that proof because the belief didn't come first. For example, if you believe that Aember can be used to channel spells, then it can. If you believe that it amplifies psionic abilities, then it does. If you believe that it is religiously significant, then it'll help you grow wings or become a spirit. If you believe it can animate inanimate objects, then it will. If you believe that you can tattoo it on your body for increased strength and physical prowess, that's exactly what it will achieve. But if you don't believe those things, then it can't do any of that. This is very frustrating to deal with, but also incredibly interesting because it means the primary methodology of finding a use for Aember is to already believe it can do that thing. This makes it really interesting as a MacGuffin because its psychic resonance gives it purpose, instead of its purpose being psychic resonance. Well, that's all I have ready for you today, and next lesson we'll probably be talking about vaults and keys, so that we can tie together some of the knowledge that we've gone over in these last few videos. But until then, just go ahead and digest what we've gone over so far, and I'll see you in the next one. So, later, Archons.